Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletcher and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
Shout out to my guy James Dolan for doing that intro video. And it's funny because if you look back, or if you just start watching at noon, or you go back and watch the video of the podcast, for some reason it takes like a half a second shot of whatever I'm doing right before it goes to the intro video, even though the way that you plug it in is supposed to start at the same time. So I'm going to do like a different face like every day just to keep it fresh and funky right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Happy Thursday, everybody. I am your host, Jay Recher. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube, man. They've been getting better and better. More subscriptions every single day. And wherever you're watching from, just hit that like button, crush that like button, because all that stuff certainly does help. And I always appreciate the love and support, like my guy, Bart Hill. What up, Jay Bird? He likes the intro. I hope you do too. Shout out to Jeff Taylor as well. Man, plenty to get into today. Of course, tonight, the Lightning back in action against the Boston Bruins at Amalie Arena. You know that I'll be there in attendance, so make sure you're following me, especially on Twitter/X at JRecher for some of the updates during the game and then after the game on all social media platforms. Recher's Rapid Reaction. I've got the videos inside the locker room, so yeah, it's going to be a good one. Cannot wait. Let's hope that the Bolts can build off of what we saw on Tuesday night when they won that game 3-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes. I thought they did a good job of keeping everything to the outside. They got to do that again tonight. I know Boston's been struggling. If you missed our chat with Nick Cattles yesterday from up in Boston, letting us know what was going wrong with the Bruins, let's just hope they don't figure it out tonight against at Amalie Arena against the Bruins. Shout out to Mark Giardino. Hello, it's Bruin at McEwen. Our guys covering USF baseball cannot be more excited to be out there with USF baseball, with USF softball. We're going to be doing a lot with them coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So very excited to get back out to the Red and see what the baseball team is all about. Ryan B, can't wait to see the Lightning Stadium Series jerseys. I'm definitely going to the Bruins versus Lightning Stadium Series game. Yeah. How about me cutting up the videos yesterday for yesterday's podcast and getting that news, getting that email from the Tampa Bay Lightning that, yes, there will be an outdoor hockey game right here in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium. Lightning Bruins, February 1st at Raymond James Stadium as part of the Navy Federal Credit Union Stadium Series game. We know that the Panthers are going to be playing the Rangers January 2nd down there at Lone Depot Park. This is great. This is phenomenal. We've been waiting for this for so long, and it's finally here, 2026, a little over a year away. I don't know when the tickets are going to come out to be sold for that, but you can bet your sweet ass that I'll be in attendance. I will be there. I went to the Lightning's game in Nashville against the Predators. So much fun there. What are the Lightning going to do for the special trip to the park? Because we know what they did in Nashville. They're dressed up in the cowboy outfits. I remember Stammer talking about the hat that he got. Yeah, I can't wait for that. It is going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, big shout out to Rob Higgins and the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. Those are the people that do everything to make sure that we get these big events here in the Tampa Bay area. We know one of the biggest Lightning fans around, the great Cheryl Newcomb. She will definitely be there. So, yeah, that's great. So, Cheryl, I'll be there, and I hope to see you again soon, Cheryl. We're talking about these Lightning fans, these Tampa Bay sports fans, and I'm so lucky and fortunate to meet so many of you over the last decade of working in sports. I want to meet the biggest fans. I want you to come up to me. I want you to reach out to me. Email me, jay@thejretropodcast.com. What do you want to see here on the podcast? Hit me up on social media. But one person that I've recently met in the last couple of months, Cheryl Newcomb, she is a diehard Tampa Bay Lightning fan. I want to meet more people like Cheryl, but you better be able to raise that bar because Cheryl is right there. Richie P, hey Jay, just checking in. Do you still have Coach Fletcher coming on today? I certainly do, Richie P. Ben Fletcher, head coach of the USF men's basketball team, is going to join us at 12:15 today. Actually, just got a message that in the next couple of weeks, we're going to hear from Coach Alex Golish here on the program. But Coach Ben Fletcher at 12:15 today on the program. We're going to talk about Coach AAR and the awards that we just announced here on the program this week about the American showing their love and remembering Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim posthumously with the award in his name, and giving him the honorary coach of the year. It just doesn't get classier than that. And we miss him. We miss Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim, and you see it right here. And I hope that when Coach joins us, he can see that, because I'm never taking that down. I may change the background, and you see, and one thing that a lot of people wanted to know, because I had a lot of different things behind me, but if you can see, and I think this is representative of who I am and what type of media member that I am here in the Tampa Bay area. Representation is key, right? I got to stick my own favorite team in here with Manchester United. But I went to the first ever Tampa Bay Sun game. You know, we have the Bucks flag behind me, the Rowdies, the Lightning. We got USF and UT atop right there with the hats. I've got Jesuit and TC hats coming too. If you want to send me a hat and you want to get in the background, man, you're more than welcome to. I've got the Ray skateboard as well, but that will never leave right here. Coach Amir Abdur-Rahim. Nobody, no USF coach has ever made a bigger impact than that guy, and it was only one season. Big Dummy Dan, we need Mr. Decroft and Dave Moore to have you as a guest announcer in the Bucks booth. You've got the brain and the chat for it. I appreciate it, buddy. Those guys do just such an incredible job. Man, I'm so excited for the game on Sunday night. Buccaneers, Washington Commanders are going to break it down at 12:30 today with actually their partner, TJ Rives, the sideline reporter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, 12:30 today. We're going to preview Buccaneers and Commanders. I already mentioned Coach Ben Fletcher at 12:15. At 1 o'clock, Matt Baker from The Athletic. And you remember Matt, longtime writer for the Tampa Bay Times, covering all things college sports. We're going to preview the Orange Bowl tonight between Notre Dame and Penn State. We're going to talk all things college football. Matt Baker at 1 o'clock, and then Eddie Encina, Eddie in the yard, hops aboard and joins us at 1:30 today, right after morning skate at Amalie Arena. What does he have to say about the Stadium Series? What does he say about Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, the win Tuesday night, and the game tonight against the Boston Bruins? As always, want to show my love to our guy, Hammer. Hammer, I got your message, and I will definitely be hitting you up later on today. We got some big things in the work over the next couple of weeks here when it comes to the Jay Recher podcast. Some great stuff I heard earlier today on WDAE. Pat and Aaron every Thursday at 8 o'clock have our guy Ian Beckles in there. Such great radio. If you get an opportunity to listen to it, please do. Ian and I, our podcast is going to start next Wednesday, the 15th at 3 p.m. The Beckles and Recher podcast. We're going to have so much fun. You should have heard the conversation that we had after the show. Because I actually stopped by today, I had to drop some stuff off. But the four of us having that conversation, hilarious. And hopefully we'll have Pat and Aaron on one of the Beckles and Recher podcasts, because that's great radio. That's entertainment. I'm sure if you guys were a fly on the wall for those conversations, you would certainly enjoy it as well. Shout out to Dolan. I got your message too. I'll be hitting you back very, very soon. If you guys have any suggestions about the podcast, feel free to head on over to thejrecherpodcast.com. Also, email me, jay@thejrecherpodcast.com. I told you guys I was going to give you an insight on just some different stuff. People always want to know, like, where I get these shoes from, what color they're going to look like. Check out this pair, okay? This is the new pair of shoes. Now, I have something else coming in tonight that I might wear instead, but there's a really good chance that I'm going to be rocking these bad boys tonight at Amalie Arena. Yes, they are kind of lightning blue, but you'll get the first. This is what happens. This is why you got to tune in to the Jay Recher podcast. I showed you my batting gloves the other day. You're going to get these bad boys right here. Look at these shoes. Get out of town. Those bad boys are no joke. Ain't nobody got these around here, do they? I like these. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, because I have a suit that's coming in tonight or today at some point. And I want to wear the new suit today, but it doesn't match these shoes. So if the suit's here in time, I will wear the suit. If not, I'll wear the shoes. Sure. And we just got our guys from the USF asking if I can start a little bit early with Coach Ben Fletcher. So yeah, bring them on in. Our guy Dolan, you're gonna have to add on to your house. The shoes. You're right. And Cheryl, thank you for the kind words. I know you should see. People said, "Oh, you should see your closet." I'm actually looking at them in here because in my like office / man cave thing I have here, I have 2 like mini closets where I keep kind of my dress shirts and some of my other collared shirts, and up top is where I keep the dress shoes, and it's not just in one, it's in the other. So it's wild, man. It's just one of those things that yeah, I don't know how it became my thing, but it certainly did. And I'm rolling with it. That's just the way it goes. Somewhere the big timer stay fly plays is Jay Anderson, Amalie Arena, Killer Shoes, Jay. Listen, it doesn't matter if it's blue, doesn't matter if it's green, doesn't matter if it's gold. You know, I'm rocking some kind of crazy shoes. All right, let's start the program the only way we know how, and let's bring in the coach of our USF men's basketball program, Ben Fletcher. Coach, so thankful for you and everything that you're doing with that program. How's it going? Happy Thursday.
Thank you for having me, man. Everything's going well. Just trying to get prepared for a good Tulane team on Saturday.
Yeah, let's start with the recent game. I mean, Wichita State, not an easy place to go in there, Coach. And it's just you hit the ground running, and it didn't seem like the switch ever went off. It was just like, all right, this is the night of the green and gold. And man, when you see everything firing all cylinders, when you're having contributions in the front court and the back court, I mean, I feel like sometimes it's just better to kind of like step back. Let me just focus on my substitutions and let those guys do their thing. Like what got into your guys the other night?
Man, I think they're coming around. You know, they know we have a balanced group. You know, we talk a lot about our depth, but we talk about, you know, the balance that we have too with, like you said earlier, with Jamil Reynolds and Deontay Green on the inside. And then we have, you know, guards that are able to make plays for each other. And, you know, that day it all came together.
What do you think the biggest focus is when it comes to the development of Jamil? Because he's just a different, when you're talking about profile of player, it's a different profile of a big man than what we had last year. Right. So to be able to see what he can contribute to the program, and I know obviously one of the biggest things is got to stay out of foul trouble, you got to stay on the court no matter what. But just from the beginning of this year to what you saw the other day, what would you say is the biggest change in his game?
Man, I think, his development, man, it's you know, Griff McComb, Mo Spates, they've done a great job of, you know, working with him, not only in practice, but outside of practice as well. And man, he's really grown in that area of, you know, getting extra work and really honing in on his skills. So, man, it's just a lot of work from a lot of different people. William Small also, you know, all those guys have done a great job with having, you know, his development, you know, so really proud of that, you know, really proud of how he's playing. He's capable of that every single night. And that's what we're going to try to keep pushing it out of him.
What's been the biggest, I guess, challenge with, you know, incorporating some of the new players in here to some of the guys that, you know, obviously we saw it with Kobe and Jaden and some of the guys that were with the team last year. How long does it take to try to get kind of like the new guard and the old guard working together? Because, man, the season comes at you quick, and then here comes the games, and it's not like you guys have an easy schedule to start the season. I mean, how long does it take for you to, find your rotation and find out what guys are going to be playing at certain times, and also those guys to kind of grow into their own roles?
Well, like you said, it takes time, you know, and we do things a little different here than a lot of places, man. We require a lot of time, to talk about life and stuff like that. So I think the first few months, man, it takes those guys to, a while to figure out, man, is this genuine or is this all for show or do they really care? So it takes them a while for that. Our system is a little different as well. We do some things that a lot of people don't do or don't care to coach. And it takes time. It's not really a timeline on it. But I think we're in a better spot now than we were a month ago. And that was due to, after the Bethune game and shout out to Bethune-Cookman. They did a really good job that night coming in here and having a game plan, and they stuck with it. But, after going home, watching that game, and, I told the guys, I said, man, it was very obvious that, man, on that night, we lacked trust, we lack responsibility, we lack unity, we lack toughness, and we lack humility. And, you know, and that's our core values that we stand on the acronym of truth. And I told him, I said, man, it'd be a disservice for me to show you this film because I don't think it'll help us get better in any area. And so, you know, that day we talked, every player, from walk-on to the GAs, everybody had to get up and say something on, you know, how can we get this thing going in the right direction? And man, I thought those guys were great. You know, we had a real grown man conversation, and ever since then, I think you've seen this team have a resemblance of last year's team.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to watch them go out there and listen. It's not how many times you get knocked down; it's how you pick yourself up and how many times you can pick yourself up. Because you know, life and especially with sports, it's about failure, man. Nobody hits 100% of their free throws, right? You got to be able to be resilient and bounce back. And you guys have been very, especially after that Bethune game, it's been very indicative of like, all right, that could be the lowest point of the season, but where do we go from here? And to be able to see the character of your team, not let that snowball and be like, all right, start. There was no self. That's one of the big things, Coach, and I want to shout you guys out for that. After that game, there was no self-doubt after that. No. And sometimes you see that kind of wear on teams, especially early on, especially when you have guys that are coming in. You know, you don't know whether they question the process, right? Because like you said, you're kind of learning, and you guys getting up there and kind of speaking your mind. And the big thing, talking about trust, that's something, and especially nowadays, and I want to ask you about kind of the modern athlete, because you've been in the game, coaching, playing. How has the message changed from whether you're a head coach or an assistant coach? How has that message changed? And what part of the message maybe has stayed the same over the years now that you and I both know the student athlete is a lot different now than just 10, 15, 20 years ago. So how has it changed? How has it stayed the same?
I think it stays the same. It depends on, you know, individually what your message is, but ours have always been to help mold men. So our conversations really hadn't changed, man. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about your family. We're going to talk about all different avenues of your life outside of basketball. And yes, we'll talk basketball, but like, man, if I'm always coming to you talking about closeouts and rebounding, man, how much trust are you going to have in me that I can help develop you into a man? So I think, you know, too many times we go away from those conversations, and now these guys are out here on the island, you know, so they don't know, you know, how to treat a lady. They don't know, you know, how to speak to your parents. So I think, man, the more we can be an extension of that household, you know, I'm not any of these guys' father, but man, we can be an extension of that, you know, and try to teach those same values that they've had instilled in them, with their parents.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it, man, because it's more than just, raising or just being a part of these players' lives. It's about being part of these human beings' lives, because the majority of these guys, like their playing career ends here. It ends in college, and that's not just here; it's anywhere. And then after this, it's a harsh reality of like, hey, man, you're gonna have to go out and get a job. You're gonna have to deal with having a wife and relationship issues and children, and it's just a different animal. It's a different ball game altogether. Coach, first and foremost, man, God bless you, because I think you've been put in a certain position where nobody saw it coming. And I don't know if you see it, but the picture is right here. Will always be right there. I was so lucky to be able to have my voice as one of the voices in the video that was playing when we remembered your good pal, the late great Amir Abdur-Rahim. And then now we hear from the American just this week that an honorary coach of the year, there's going to be an award named after him. I mean, I know you're you've been close. You were close to him for so long, but for a guy like me that knew him for a year, and that's just like, could you feel that too, even being with him at Kennesaw and just knowing the guy, like the profound impact that he made in just one season at USF? Like basketball at the time, you don't know this, not, and I'm not slighting you, but like, I grew up in New York, diehard Knicks fan. I like Patrick Ewing's my guy forever. Like I'm a big hooper, but Tampa wasn't it's not always a big hoop, but it was last year. And even this year, you can feel it. Like it is the Tampa Bay's home for hoops. I mean, do you realize it? Can you put into words the impact that he was able to have here in Tampa in one season?
I mean, just to see the outpouring of support, man, that told me everything I needed to know. Now, classy move, very classy move by the American to name it. Amir and I had several conversations, man. We would talk about everything, man. Sports, music, it didn't matter. But, one of the things that he would always say is, man, he wanted to serve people, and he wanted to have an impact, and leave a legacy. He said these things. And, man, to actually see it come to fruition, man, it warms my heart because, like, man, that's what he wanted. He wanted that type of significance, to where it wasn't just about him. People would oftentimes think it was, but no, that's who he was. He's a genuine person, man. Just wants to do anything he can to help anybody else. And I used to always joke with him, man, like, man, when do you have time for yourself, man? You're always placing yourself in everybody else's problems, man. But when do you handle yours? But that's just the type of guy he was, man. And that's why I think, this has been felt all over the country, just because of the type of guy he was.
Yeah, I always remarked, and I think back and kind of going back to what you were saying about you're not these players' father, but you're kind of an extension of that.
Right.
And the thing is that when we would listen to Amir speak, I would think about, wow, that sounds like what my dad and my grandfather would say to me, right?
Right.
Look a man in his eyes, shake his hand, make eye contact, right? Hold the door open, please and thank you go a long way.
Yep.
Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't do anything to anybody else you wouldn't want done to yourself. And those are the kind of things that, like, it endears you to him. It's just like, man, I'll run through a brick wall for that guy. I'm not even on the freaking team. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was pretty wild to be able to see kind of that entire journey. How would you assess how the team has been able to deal with it? Because, we're there at the Yangling Center for the Celebration of Life. Listen, unfortunately, the older you get, you do, we've experienced things like this, even as something as tragic as that. These are kids, right? These are kids. How has the team as a whole, coaching staff included, how has everybody kind of rallied around this situation and come out of the other side playing some really good basketball right now?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, with the players, man, they're a resilient bunch. I've said it all year long. When we started practice, that was all them. I remember getting phone calls and saying, "Hey, coach, man, we want to practice. We want to practice." And I'm sitting here going, "Man, y'all want to practice? It's only been a couple of days. Y'all want to." But I said, "Okay. I mean, I'm totally doing this for y'all, and that's what you want to do. That's what we'll do." And man, to a T, man, we came in that Saturday morning. And, man, you would have thought Amir was there, like never had to the strength coach didn't have to yell, echo. He didn't have to make guys get in line, and it was as loud as, like Amir loved it, man. So, man, they've handled it well, man. And, I can't say it enough. Like Michael Kelly, our athletic director, Lee Butler, and Jackie Grant, man, they've been awesome. Giving us resources so these guys can have the support that they need and have the counseling that they need. And so, man, they've been great. The staff as well, early on, I had some people come and speak to us just to make sure we're in the right headspace so we can be good for those guys on a daily basis. So, it's a tough deal, man, just because, I didn't view him as my boss. I would say it to him just to make him mad because he hated to be called boss. But no, he was more of a brother. And like, man, we talked about a ton of things, and that's the hardest part because, a lot of people at this stage, we're playing games and doing all these different things, but like I don't think enough people, remember like he still got a wife and 3 kids at home that are struggling, and so. That's the part that's still heartbreaking. Just to see them and know that they miss them dearly, like we all do. And we have to be mindful of that. Even though I feel terrible most days, but man, those 3 little kids and his wife, man, it's 10 times worse for them because I tell people all the time, man, I've never seen someone in a father role be as present as he was, and he wanted to be there. Like he would take his kids to school in the morning. He would play with them at night when he got home from practice, knowing that he probably had to watch film, get prepared for next practice or next game. but he always made time for his wife and kids. So that's the hard part, because we still get to see them, but they have some hard times, So they're used to seeing him every day when he gets home, and then that's not there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I got let go from iHeart, my job that I had for 10 years, the Monday after the celebration of life. And my perspective throughout the entire thing is like, I'm going to be good. And people were so surprised of my perspective because I put a lot into the job, and they're like, aren't you going to miss it? And I'm like, yeah, but my whole thing was, Coach, like, I just watched Coach's wife and his 3 kids. Like, that put things in perspective for me. Like, I'm here, I still have my health, I'll be okay, right? I think about Coach Amir's wife, and I'm like, that's real loss. Like, that's the thing that that's people right there that we need to be concerned about. I'll be fine. And I've rebounded. I got my podcast, and the sky's the limit. And I think you're spot on. We have to keep them in our thoughts and prayers for sure.
No
Coach,
question.
before I let you go, game coming up against Tulane, back home next Wednesday as well. Like, what's the goal here? I mean, we're doing well in conference play. I mean, once we get to the kind of the mid, like, Tulane's never an easy game to play, right? Especially that one game before you go back home. What's kind of the focus as a whole when it comes to this team over the next couple of games?
Man, it's one day at a time, making sure we maximize each day. And I tell guys all the time, man, there are 3 type of people in this world, man. You have people that's worried about tomorrow, people that's worried about yesterday. We want to be in that selective group where we're going to be where our feet are.
Right.
And, yes, Tulane is on Saturday, but, man, this thing starts with us. We have to worry about us first, get better. And then today is a prep day for Tulane, and we'll shift our focus to them. But it's about maximizing each day that we come out here and making sure we get better. And that's the biggest thing for us. We can't get so fixated on what's to come, or can't get fixated on what just happened. That's done. Today is about getting ready for Tulane and being better today.
Go USFBulls.com. Everybody watching out there, go get you some tickets. Again, back at the YC next Wednesday night. Coach Ben Fletcher, appreciate your time again. God bless you, man. You're doing a fantastic job. You're not just a fantastic coach, but a fantastic leader of men yourself. So every once in a while, take a step back. I used to bust Amir's chops about this. Every once in a while, take a deep breath and take it all in and enjoy it for a second. Don't tell the kids that. We don't want to let them get too far ahead of themselves. But us as grown-ups, we can kind of take a step back. And you're doing a great job, man. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Man, Jay, thank you for having me, man, and go Bulls.
Yes, sir. Go Bulls. The one and only Coach Ben Fletcher. What a great job, man. He's done exemplary. Just this whole thing, man. This whole thing has been such a unique experience to everybody, and not just that it happened, but when it happened, right? It's tough. And again, I'll say it again. Life is all about perspective, right? Again, I went over to iHeart today, had to drop off some things and see some people I haven't seen in a couple of months. And people, somebody was like, man, that must have been eerie. It must have been weird. Nah, not really. I mean, it is what it is. I'm a people person. I enjoy people. I enjoy everybody. You're good to me. I'm good to you. I'm so indebted to those who have supported me throughout this entire journey, but I'm not the woe is me guy. I'm not the feel bad for me. There's people that are losing their homes on the West Coast of the United States due to fires, right? Like, there's always somebody out there that has it worse than you. And going back to the conversation that we just had with Coach Fletcher, that's something that Coach Amir would always, preach. Like, get out there and work hard. There's other people that have it worse than you. And when you sit back and you listen to a guy like that, and you think back, and that's what my dad was telling me. That's what my grandfather's been telling me my entire life. Be good to people. Don't do anything to anybody else you wouldn't want done to yourself. Pain is your friend. That's my dad would sneak that one in there too. Keep your eyes open. Watch your back. Be kind. Be good to people. I don't think there's any mistake. I don't think there's any coincidence that so far, and I know it's still early on in the tenure of the Jay Recher podcast, like, we've had a lot of support. We've had a lot of guests. I've had a lot of people that are saying, yeah, whatever you need. I'm not paying these people to come on. Like, I'm not, I don't look at it as like a talent thing. I'm like this uber talented person, like, knows more than anybody. No, I think it's because throughout my journey, I've treated people well, and hopefully that they feel like that I'm a person that they can confide in, they can talk with, and that when they join me to talk sports, that we have a good time and everybody wins. Share it on social media, right? And continue to grow the brand here on the Jay Recher podcast. And that's what we continue to do. Shout out to the women. Did you watch the women's game yesterday? Holy smoke. If you're Wichita State, you do not want to see any USF athletic program ever. 72-46 last night. Bulls winning now 6 in a row. Jose Fernandez has those girls flying. The same thing on the men's side and the women's side that I really like. The depth this year for both teams. They can beat you in a multitude of ways, whether it's Laura down low, whether it's Sammy and Mama on the outside. Like, there is just such a depth. It's so great to see on both the men's and the women's side. And that's why, hey, they're going to be a handful, both undefeated in conference play right now. Let's hope that they can keep that rolling as we get closer to the conference tournament. And hey, you never know. We could see the men and the women in the NCAA tournament this year. Let's flip the script a little bit. Let's talk some Buccaneers football with our guy, TJ Rives, who has as many hats as I have shoes.
I saw those earlier when I was sliding by on social media. And do you know that I am a Memphis guy? I don't know
Tigers
how much you know
way.
that I'm a Memphis guy. All right, so born and bred in Memphis. Yesterday, am I correct, would have been Elvis's 90th birthday.
Yes.
And Jay Recher with Don't Mess With My Blue Suede Shoes. Outstanding, brother.
My grandma, huge Elvis fan. I went to Graceland years ago.
Yes.
Graceland was one of the greatest experiences ever. Putting the headset on, just walking around. Like, people don't realize the impact of Elvis. Like, they joke around about it. But if you go to Graceland and you just watch some of these things and you realize how popular he was, like, people don't, if people have never been there, it's one of those things. And I get it. Some people say, I'll go and I'll go 10 times and it won't be enough. Some people say, I'll go one time and one time is enough. Fine. But it's one of those landmarks in the U.S. that you got to go to at least once to understand a pop culture icon like that.
And you talk about basically revolutionized music. He and the Beatles. I know we're going way back and neither one of us was alive really for this to happen, but rock and roll as we know it is really Elvis and the Beatles. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's so woven into the Memphis culture, etc. So wild. I saw your blue shoes, and I'm thinking immediately about the king, Elvis.
The king, man. Yeah. Well, I gotta make sure that my hips are okay when I walk to Amalie today because it's gonna be cold, and I gotta make sure that I'm okay. I'm not gonna be doing any dancing at media dining. That's
exactly.
For sure. Excited is the understatement for Sunday night playoff football, and I know I'm speaking to the choir here. Like, to be able to see this team get back to the postseason, 5th straight year, 4th straight division crown. There's a level of excitement here because this team with Baker Mayfield at the helm, there's just and you were there, TJ, you were in the locker room after the game. There was a different good feeling, a vibe about this team. It's not always tangible, but man, I think when it comes to headspace, when it comes to their motivation and just their good feeling, I don't know if it could be any better right now for the Bucs heading into Sunday night.
You make an excellent point. You have a veteran-laden team. And I keep preaching this, talking about preaching to the choir, that you cannot replace what Mike Evans and Tristan Wirfs and Vita Vea and Levante David and Antoine Winfield and, if healthy, Jamel Dean have already done and been through, and that's win a Super Bowl. When you have that as part of your culture, the rest kind of takes care of itself on the veterans policing their position group or the meeting room and or the practice field and the preparation. It doesn't just have to be Todd Bowles and his staff. These guys know what it takes. And I will now include Baker Mayfield in that group as a leader because he had won a playoff game in Cleveland. And I keep joking, if you win a playoff game in Cleveland, that's like winning 3 playoff games. Right. He had won one before and obviously had played at the highest level in college in the college football playoff. And this dude is a leader and means serious business. And look, it's not only him. I mean, for the likes of Luke Gedeke or Cade Otton or Yaya Diaby now, who's newer, or Rashad White, Anthony Nelson. I'm going down the list of guys. I'm going to probably leave somebody out. A lot of those guys played in the playoffs the last couple of years, at least last year or the last couple of years. You have got a playoff veteran-laden team for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Even though it's a young team, they've got some playoff experience, and I think that bodes very well for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's a great point. Usually that doesn't go hand in hand with a younger team being a playoff veteran team, but you have that good mix. And I think we see that through every team, right? You saw it when this team won the Super Bowl years ago. It was like, yeah, they did have Brady and the vets, but also you saw Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. being arguably two of the better players at their position in just their rookie season. I wanted to ask you about Mike Evans and getting that record and what that means as far as the organization as a whole. Because I saw something yesterday on NFL, Inside the NFL, I think it was, and Ryan Clark and some of these other guys, and they're kind of, I can't believe Todd did that, and I wouldn't have let Mike do this. And I feel like at times, like, we got to stop with the, like, the sanctity of the game. Like, sometimes when you have the ability to do so, it's not a terrible thing to reward good people that consistently do fantastic things on and off the field. And I thought it was an opportunity on Sunday. The Buccaneers and Todd Bowles and Liam Cohen took that situation and made everybody happy. I know what the negative could have been, but if you worry about getting hit by a car every single time you try to cross the street, you're going to be stuck on the sidewalk, TJ.
Good point that you make there on that. And for the haters, please, I mean, they got to fill up the hours. I realize the jabronis, to use your wrestling world term, the jabronis have got to fill up the hours with something to debate. But you just said it. He is a phenomenal individual. He, his wife, their family, their foundation, and good things, if not great things, should be happening to great people. And just to take you back to that moment, again, I am in a privileged position. I realize this and understand this, to be down there on the field for all of these Buccaneer games for the last 20 years. I cannot recollect in the regular season. We're not talking about the postseason or a Super Bowl. It's a whole different level. And we're going to talk more about the playoff game with the Commanders in a few moments. But in a regular season setting where you had to win the game, you're trying to win the division to make the playoffs, and you get a chance at something like that, where he's going to be on a list of two. It's Jerry Rice and him, and you get the one more opportunity to go out there and close the game out. You're not trying to throw a bomb to score another needless touchdown. You know, this is not Spurrier in the early 90s. I'm already up by 30. Let's make it 37 or make it 44 at the end of a game. This is, we're trying to get him the record that he richly deserves with how hard he worked to get back, how high a level he's played at the last 4 or 5 games to get close to the record. And he was right there on the final drive. And the Saints, he even said this to me on Buccaneers radio, and I don't know how much he elaborated about this part in the press conference that you were around right after that the Saints were down there in the red zone going, don't let Evans get it. They're saying this to each other. They're yelling it to each other. It's going to 13, cover 13, double 13. This is the stuff they were saying at the end of the game. So they're clearly trying to stop the record. So it was still a competitive situation. And great job by Liam Cohen to dial up a safe throw, because I've seen the TV reaction where they have the cutaway of Liam Cohen standing over there with his play card with Todd Bowles right after they stopped him. And I'm sure part of that was, Coach, I've got a safe, low-risk play. We're going to get him the ball and see if we can't get him the record. And Todd Bowles went along with it. And bravo that they were able to pull this off. And at field level, what a special moment. Unreal. Look at how his team reacted. Forget about anything else. Look at his teammates and how much it meant to them for him to have gotten that record and for them to be part of it. What a moment. We're going to talk about that moment 10 years from now. I have said since it happened in 2002, we would be talking about Rondé Barber's interception to close down Veterans Stadium 25 years later. Guess what? We're getting on to about 25 years later. We're still talking about it. We're going to talk about that Mike Evans moment 10 years from now. And we may still be talking about it 25 years from now. What a moment.
We'll certainly be talking about it when he gets that gold jacket and gets enshrined in the Hall of Fame as well, because we know that is just a foregone conclusion. That's for sure. I want to ask you about Todd Bowles, because you talk to him every game. I, going into his tenure with the Buccaneers, was a little apprehensive because half of my family are Jets fans, and I saw how it ended there. And I look at this situation now, and it just seems like even though the Buccaneers making the playoffs again, there's still some segment of the fan base that looks at it and has that they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I just keep thinking to myself, there's such a misunderstanding when it comes to Todd Bowles, and they don't play well. I wish he was more fiery. Okay, well, to me, I look at a team, if they're struggling and their coach is going crazy, I look at it like, I don't trust that guy. He is not calm. He is not under control. I want a guy that's under control amongst the madness, not a guy that's freaking out. But as far as kind of like the intangibles, outside of the numbers, outside of the points, what is some of the characteristics that you see, because you do have that privileged position, that exemplifies the type of man, exemplifies the type of coach that Todd Bowles is to this to his players, that gives him the respect that he has earned over the years?
Very valid question. And look, this has been a hot button topic really for the last 2 seasons. And here's what I submit. Look at how this team responded at the end of last season with a first-year quarterback in Baker Mayfield in the mix and his defense, and how many big games they won down the stretch of the season at Atlanta, at Green Bay, blew out Jacksonville at home to make the playoffs, win the division, and beat the Eagles in the playoff game. Now you fast forward back around to this year, and going into that bye week, I understand the vitriol. People saw the wins early in the year at Detroit and over Philadelphia and had aspirations that this was going to be an 11 or 12 win team. Well, it got injured, and it was playing a very tough part of the schedule in October, as you know, with Baltimore and Kansas City and San Francisco and Atlanta on 4 days rest or lack of rest on a Thursday night after playing the Eagles. It was not an easy stretch of the schedule. So I was confident to a degree, but I'm curious, how are they going to respond in that Giants game? Because the Giants were off a bye week just like the Bucs were. You go back and watch the Buccaneers dump truck the Giants in the first half when they had Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets ready to go, and all their fans ready to roar for him. And the Buccaneers beat the crap out of the Giants in the first half to get up 23-0. That said something. And as this has progressed, dramatic win in Carolina, impressive win. I mean, how about the win in Los Angeles, kids? If you don't think this team's playing hard and wanting to play for Todd Bowles, and that his schemes on defense and Liam Cohen's scheme on the offense aren't effective, look at the second half of the Chargers game. They're good, and the Bucs destroyed them in the second half in LA. So it just says something about his team responding, as now 2 years in a row in December and early January. The stat is, on the Jay Recher podcast, the Buccaneers are 10-2. 10-2, hello, to close out December and January, the last 2 years in the regular season. That matches the LA Rams as the only other team with that good of a record. Better than the Chiefs, better than the Philadelphia Eagles, better than the Lions the last 2 years. You can say what you want about resting starters at the end of a season because you've already clinched home field, but 10-2 is 10-2. Does he do everything perfectly with game management? No. Are there several coaches of playoff teams that don't do everything well with game management, timeouts, situations, etc.? Yeah, there are. And this team keeps winning when it matters, Jay Recher.
Yeah, Tom Coughlin has 2 Super Bowls, and he was one of the worst when it came to that kind of
Sirianni is the same thing in Philadelphia.
Tomlin has trouble with his timeouts.
There are people that are on Mike Tomlin exactly about this. Yeah,
it's crazy. I want to ask you about the running attack with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I mean, Bucky. You look at Rashad's number; they're not terrible, but it's just what Bucky's been able to do as a rookie. Whether it's catching the ball in the backfield, whether it's running. I mean, most yards after contact, I think I saw on average today. But I want to ask you about Rachaad, what kind of impact that he could still make, because I think we know what Bucky can do. But Rachaad, I think he's got the mental fortitude to to kind of like what you said, put last week behind him, get forward to this week, play a part in the game, whatever it is, probably picking up the blitzes, probably catching the ball out of the backfield. But your thoughts on Rachaad, what has happened in that running game and what he can do this weekend?
You're going to need them both, and you needed them both down the stretch of the season at different times. And I know he did not get – I don't believe he got a second touch, I don't think, after he got the touch on the run play that got called back because of a penalty. It wasn't an official play, as it turned out. As far as Bucky Irving, I mean, what an explosive player. What a find by Jason Light and his staff in the mid-rounds. I mean, does that guy look like a mid-round draft pick? He looks like a first-round pick with the way that he's played in terms of value. And at field level, you just can't appreciate the explosive first step and the vision that the young man has. And you just hope you can keep him healthy. I know he got banged up at the end of the year, and you had to go back to Rachaad White carrying the ball. He did it well at times and catching the ball out of the backfield. They like them both. White is bigger. White is a better pass blocker. He's a better route runner. Let's see if they don't get them both involved a little more against the Commanders. But if it's Bucky most of the time, you got to ride the hot hand too. But Jay, he is a fun player at field level to watch him change direction. And that first step is quicker than almost everybody else's first two steps. That's why you see him having the success, cutting back, cutting through holes, etc. He's just explosive with that first step, like few are right now in the NFL that are running the football.
Yeah, just the contributions that we've gotten from the rookie class this year with Graham Barton and McMillan and with Devin Culp the last couple of weeks and Bucky Irving. Like, I mean, you want to talk about narrative changing, right?
Yeah.
Jason Light has just etched his name as one of the best general managers in all of sports over the last couple of seasons, just from what he's been able to do and the way that these guys have been able to have impact so early on in their career. And we see in sports where even, especially in the NFL stands for not for long, and it's not just the players, coaches, GMs in 1 year, 2 years. Jason Light drafted Roberto Aguayo. Well, people forget he also drafted Matt Gay, right? So
Correct.
it's like, but he also is able to find a guy like Chase McLaughlin, who's been automatic the last couple of years. So to see Jason Light in the last couple of seasons really step forward and make an impact, and you look at how many guys on this team that were drafted by the Buccaneers, I mean, it says a lot about the growth of this organization as a whole.
No doubt. And you can even go back to what was in place that enticed Tom Brady, TB12, to want to come here. He saw the roster that had Godwin and Evans draft picks, that had the likes of Levante David on the defense. And obviously, it's just continued from Cade Otton to Yaya Diaby to Rachaad White, who we were talking about, Cody Mauch and Luke Gedeke on the offensive line. I mean, just on and on down the list where you have replenished through the draft, even in the later rounds. And I'm glad you brought up McMillan. My Lord, has he come on at the end of the season when you absolutely had to have it. The horrible injury to Godwin, Sterling Shepard hurt. You're trying to figure out who can that other receiver be. How about McMillan? 7 touchdowns in the final 5 games. The only guy with more touchdowns than that in a 5-game span as a receiver is Randy Moss in 1998 as a rookie. That's elite company again to be in. And why do I get the feeling that McMillan's not going to be ready for a big play or two in this Commanders game? Bear in mind, as you know, that huge 4th down play against the Saints late in the game, the throw to McMillan, that's his play. That is him all the way. And they had that much belief in him to be able to get open and for Mayfield to deliver the dime on that one, and then later the dime on the touchdown in the corner of the end zone. But that shows you the confidence they have in Jalen McMillan to run that play for him on 4th and 8 in the clutch in a must-win game. Are you kidding me?
4th and 8. The stones to call that play from Liam Cohen, the execution of the throw from Baker Mayfield, and the catch from Jalen McMillan. I mean, you want to talk about this synchronicity, symbiosis of this entire offense, this team. I mean, that play kind of encapsulates the whole thing. Let's talk about this matchup with the Commanders. We know it starts and ends with Jaden Daniels, a fantastic rookie. What do you think is going to be the key to the outcome of this game? I've said that I think Jaden Daniels, you can't be that good as a rookie unless you have that snap and clear mentality. If you make a mistake, you just got to go back out there. I'm looking for that one play because of the margins, right? The margins are so fine in the postseason, and maybe if he tries to do a little bit too much, whether it's running and he fumbles or he tries to fit in one of those throws in a tight area and he gets picked off, what do you see as far as the key in the difference of this contest Sunday night?
I think the ability to contain him from getting around the left or the right end, containment. And they have had problems with that really for years for Todd Bowles' outside rushers. That's going to be critical. because you'd much rather have him try to earn it weaving through the middle of the pocket in the middle of the defense as opposed to around on the end where it becomes 20, 30, 40 yards or worse, which is what he can do. So contain him around the end. Does he play tight in a playoff game? I know he won a Heisman Trophy at LSU, but this is the NFL. They're on the road. A bonkers crowd, we believe, will be roaring in that game. And let's see if you get him to make a mistake or two, especially early in the game, to give you some momentum. So I think probably the two biggest keys are containing him around the end, and can you rattle him with a play or two, a big hit, a pick, something to rattle him, because, again, he's not done this before. This is advantage Buccaneers veteran players, advantage Baker Mayfield, and playing at home that you've done that before. And I know Dan Quinn does have playoff experience in Atlanta, including being with them with the Super Bowl, but he doesn't have Matt Ryan in this instance. He's got a rookie in this instance, and that's got to be worth something for the Buccaneers Sunday night.
Yeah, he doesn't have MVP Matt Ryan. What a year that year for Atlanta.
Yeah.
Incredible season that they had with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and the crew. Shaq Barrett, to be able to walk into that locker room, TJ, and to see him there, you could have wiped a smile off that guy's face if you tried. Like, it's so cool. You want to talk about feel-good stories. I mean, that's what it's about, right? I mean, you know this as well as anybody. It's about the relationships. It's about the memories, like you said, with Rondé and Mike Evans. But, I mean, Shaq just looks at peace, and I'm so glad he's back. But as far as him being on the field, I mean, what can we expect from Shaq Barrett on Sunday night?
Great unknown, and he was able to be out there for a few plays. And look, by his own admission, he is just trying to get into football shape to maybe be able to play. I'm saying this, I don't have this on any authority, to be like a 20-play player maybe on Sunday night to get back out there. And again, you've illuminated this. It's been talked about so much in this area. His wife, they have gone through a horrible tragedy, and the grieving process of all of it is not something that's finite. It's not something that, hey, okay, they got through the end of 2023 and early 2024, so now all is better. Again, it's been an awful thing for them to overcome. He was conflicted, obviously, about leaving this area to go play for the Dolphins, and then just eventually decided, I can't go do this. Mentally, as much as anything, I can't go do this. And then the more that the season wore on, I believe he missed it. The veteran players will always tell you, Jay, and you know this, and it's common sense for the audience, it isn't playing the games that's the difficult part later in your career. It's all the preparation to be able to play the games, the training camp, the preseason, how long the year is. So, again, you're getting him fresh at the end of this year. I know he has a hope to maybe play next year. I don't know what that reality is. But why do I get the feeling that that guy with more Super Bowl experience, it's a great point by you, ends up maybe making a play in this game on Sunday night to help the Bucs?
Remember last year, and I know it wasn't the year that he had a couple of years ago when he had damn near 20 sacks, but if you remember, one of the shining moments that he had last year was Justin Fields, Chicago, early on in the season. Shaq comes away with this weird-looking play, and he gets kind of like a
He stuck the paw up in the air and stabbed that ball at about the 5, and then he was trying to get in, and he had his teammates pushing him in. It was almost metaphorical and almost like Hollywood that they were helping him off the field emotionally with what happened with the drowning of his daughter, and they were physically pushing him in the end zone. I mean, that's a Hollywood moment that happened last year. And it's one of the reasons why this guy has not left this community the entire calendar year. They didn't leave the community, and he wants to be part of this one more time. Let's see what happens.
All right. Give me kind of an unsung hero or one thing that you're going to be keeping a keen eye on Sunday night as the Buccaneers take on the Commanders.
You want to see somebody maybe make a big play in this game that we're not necessarily talking about? How about Payne Durham at tight end? I'm just throwing that out there. Cade Otton, again, is questionable. How much can he play? Maybe Payne Durham is that guy that ends up making a play. Defensive side of the ball, why do I get the feeling that a Kalijah Kancey or a Vita Vea might have a big game and a huge play in this game up the middle? They have been so good as a tandem in the middle of the defense. I don't know how many people realize this. For all the maligning of Todd Bowles' defense, when you look at the numbers in terms of sacks, they're sixth in the NFL in sacks as a defense. When you look at against the run, they're fourth. Now, most people would have figured good run defense, fourth in the NFL against the run. A lot of that is Cansey and Vea. Does one of them make a play on Sunday night against the Commanders? All I know is I can't wait. I cannot. I mean, it's only Thursday while we're doing this live. I am ready to go for Sunday night. This is what it's all about, kids, to be in the playoffs.
Sunday,
we love this.
Sunday at 1 p.m. We're gonna be like looking around, like what's going on here?
The only saving grace is this is not Monday night, as you know. Right. The last 2 years it was Monday night, and it was painful to have to watch all of Sunday and go, we're not playing until tomorrow night. I mean, I understand why the NFL is doing it. Television rules the world. That's why they have a Monday night playoff game, but it's really almost unfair to those other two teams to have to wait that long when you're seeing everybody else play before you. And it's truly a disadvantage when you're coming back to play the next weekend on one less day of rest, but I understand why they're doing it. But at least this is Sunday night. And again, Buck fans, savor this, get out there, be loud. This is why they worked so hard down the stretch of the season to make the playoffs, win the division, and have a home playoff game, was to take advantage of Sunday night.
All right, real quick. Give me a boxing match to keep an eye on over the next couple of months.
Oh, my goodness. There's a couple of them. I'm a big boxing guy. I got the boxing podcast that's out there, the Big Fight Weekend podcast. It's probably this February 22nd card. It's going to be in Saudi Arabia. It's got a world heavyweight title fight. These aren't all American fighters. Got a heavyweight title fight with the Brit Daniel Dubois. He's the guy that knocked out Anthony Joshua. And then it's got the light heavyweight title rematch with the two Russians, Beterbiev and Bivol. There's like 4 other title fights literally on the pay-per-view. There's 5 or 6 world title fights February 22nd. So long after the NFL playoffs, long after the Super Bowl, we got a little boxing to get to in February, but I always appreciate you working in a shout out here or there on however we can do this. And let me say this publicly to the peeps, support what this guy is doing. The quality of what's going on here with the guests and what you're seeing every day and how it's being produced and delivered. Support this by hitting the like button, by sharing it out on social media when you see it. If he's got sponsors, patronize him. Is it a sponsor that got you the shoes? Hold up the blue suede shoes again. Is that a sponsor? If he says get a discount, if he says get a discount on these shoes, go buy it from whoever has the discount and help this man out with the blue suede shoes. Because I love that.
You're the man.
I love that. Brother. Listen, continue to be well. You have me back anytime you want. If you need me after, notice what I'm about to say, after a win over the Commanders for the divisional round, let's do it. I look forward to being back with you.
Thanks, buddy. And yeah, the fight I'm looking for, February 22nd, Shakur Stevenson, Floyd Schofield.
Yes. 2 Americans.
WBC lightweight title. That's the second fight on the whole card.
That's a fantastic pay-per-view. And you're right. I'd forgotten about Shakur, and Schofield is a great young up-and-coming fighter, lightweight world title fight. So again, all of that's in February. We got time to promote that. Keep knocking them dead with the Bolts.
Thank you, brother.
With the Bulls. With everything going on here with the Buccaneers this weekend, I'm checking you out. I'm checking out the interviews. I'm checking out the show, and the public needs to do the same thing with you.
Appreciate it. TJ Rives, Bucs sideline guy. Check him out on all social media platforms as well. TJ, appreciate it, brother. I'll see you on Sunday night. Go Bucs.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good stuff. TJ Rives, man, the energy, the passion, man, he does have that privileged vantage point, man. And it's fun to see him kind of walking up and down the sideline, and then you hear him on the broadcast, and to be able to see him downstairs after the game, like it's awesome. Great things happening and the great people. It doesn't get better than our guy TJ Rives. Go check out everything that he's doing. He's involved everywhere. I always love seeing the different ventures that people get into outside of, you just know him as, the Buccaneers radio sideline guy, but doing stuff, Big Fight Weekend, right, with boxing, and a lot of great discussions there. And I'm an old school boxing fan myself too, right? So I know that there's boxing when it comes to Logan Paul and Jake Paul and Conor McGregor and all that stuff. Yeah, I think there's a place for that too, because sports at the end of the day is entertainment. But there's also that old school boxing feel. I remember my parents taking me to friends' houses while there was big time heavyweight title fights with Mike Tyson and George Foreman and things like that. So that's in my blood as well. But that's what you're going to get here on the J Retro Podcast. Again, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Just don't try to find me on Etsy or Pinterest. I'm sorry. That is my girlfriend's thing. That's what she's going to do. And like and subscribe here on YouTube. We're talking a little bit of everything. Again, Lightning back in action tonight against the Boston Bruins. I'll be there at Amalie Arena. Our guy at Encina joins us at 1:30 today. I got Recher's Rapid Reaction coming after that one, including post-game videos inside the locker room and the press conference from head coach John Cooper. Football this weekend, not just, and I guess it's not the week because it's Thursday and Friday. Yeah, I'm a Friday weekend guy, but the football starts tonight with the Orange Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State. We're going to have some college football talk with our guy, Matt Baker from The Athletic. Matt, great to see you. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Congratulations on being with The Athletic, man. I'm just so happy to see your journey, man. How are things?
I can't complain. It's been drinking from a fire hose in the first couple months at The Athletic. I keep telling people, don't change jobs during football season and don't change jobs during a hurricane. But we're figuring it out. We're getting along, and I'm excited for the final 3 games of the season in college football, and then kind of hitting the reset button after that.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm just so happy for you and all your success, man. And if anybody can pivot in what looks like an unpivotable times, you are the man that is able to do it. At first, take us back to last week and what happened and everything down in New Orleans. I mean, wow, just one of those things where it superseded sports. Like everybody was like, yeah, okay, we're talking about the postponement of the game, but just that whole situation from your perspective.
I mean, it was wild. It's not really, I wish I could describe it, Jay, but I really can't. It was weird in that it wasn't what you'd expect, right? In terms of the number of people on the streets and the atmosphere around the game and all that stuff. So it wasn't what you would expect. But it also wasn't super weird either. Like, it didn't feel apocalyptic. It wasn't like that despite the tragedy that happened. So it was somewhere between weird and not weird. And I know that's a terrible way to describe it, but that's what it felt like. And it was, again, just one of the more, I mean, certainly an unforgettable part of my career, right? I'm running around trying to find I've never really been to New Orleans before. I'm trying to find out where the press conference is with the police. Where's their headquarters? I walk here, it's not there. I got to go somewhere else. I'm waiting out front talking to these politicians and sheriffs and stuff, and I don't know who these people are because I'm just here to watch a football game. So from that perspective, it was unforgettable. And then the other part, in addition to the professional part, my wife and kid were with me. We came from DFW for Christmas, and I wanted to go cover the Sugar Bowl. Like, we are going through the state of Louisiana on our way home. This makes perfect sense. And then there's this whole, okay, what do we tell our 7-year-old? And do they want to stay with me or do they want to go? And there was no good answer. I don't think there was no clear answer. They ended up staying because it didn't make sense to leave. And they actually ended up going to the game because they felt encouraged enough by everything that happened. And obviously I did as well. Tickets to the Sugar Bowl were cheaper than tickets to the aquarium in New Orleans because of everything that happened. So my son got an unforgettable experience out of it. And again, it's just this weird, bizarre, unforgettable experience. What happened was tragic. And then everybody tried to move forward the best we could.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. And we've seen this, unfortunately. And I was just mentioning this a little bit earlier on the show. As you get older, man, and it's hard not to get jaded, but we go through unfortunate things around the country. But the one, I don't know if it's weird or not, but it's just sports has a way of galvanizing people, and it gives us an ability to kind of move forward. And because it was so near and dear to me, living in New York during 9/11, being there 3 days before 9/11 at the Twin Towers, and not knowing what the country was going to be like, and then seeing Mike Piazza hit a home run, against the Braves, and seeing, George Bush throw out the first pitch for the game that year for the World Series. And just, it's kind of, we cover sports for a living, Matt, right? And then we have the ability to be able to watch these games where it really does. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say it does help people heal and give us kind of a sense of normalcy again, doesn't it?
Yeah. With everything that was going on, the most normal, certainly I guess that would have been New Year's Day, the most normal part of all of it was after I wrote my story, right? I'm hacking away and Then I'm done, and I get to come up for air a little bit professionally, and went and hung out with my wife and kid in the hotel lobby with all these Georgia and Notre Dame fans watching the Ohio State Oregon Rose Bowl. That's what felt the most normal, right? Where we had to figure out dinner. Did we want to go out to eat? Could I get food from the media center for all of us? Just the logistics of that. What were we comfortable with? But then we're just hanging out watching football. The same thing we would have been doing at home, honestly. So yeah, there is a sense of that and being able to get back to normal. Again, what happened was tragic, but sports does have that power, and it was cool to be able to see the Notre Dame people celebrate after all of that, and for things to start opening up again. Again, just to there's only awkward transitions in all of this, but just an unforgettable experience.
Yeah. Now let's go to the game tonight. Orange Bowl, Notre Dame, Penn State. I think this is kind of the advantage of having the 12-team playoff, because I was a little concerned. I was one of those guys that was like, man, the one thing about college football is like, you could have a great year, you lose one game, and your whole postseason changes. You're going to maybe a great bowl game, but you're not going to be fighting for the national championship.
Right.
But now for teams like Ohio State, who lost to Michigan, and for teams like, Notre Dame somehow finds a way to get there, even though they're lost to Northern Illinois. It seemed like maybe if there was a shorter playoff, they might have gotten there at some point somehow. But for a team like Penn State for all these years, like they were one of the final four teams standing. Like, what do you make? We'll get to the game tomorrow night here in a second, but just what do you make of Notre Dame and Penn State and kind of the journey for them to get to this point? And who do you think is going to come out on top tonight?
Well, I think you're spot on. The 12-team playoff allows for more teams that aren't the bluest of blue bloods. I mean, Notre Dame and Penn State are, what are they? Somewhere in the 6 to 15 range if we're ranking jobs in the country, right? So I'm not going to say, we got Cinderella here in Notre Dame. Nobody's ever heard. No, it's certainly not that. But they also haven't been the Georgia and the Alabama, and to some degree Ohio State. They're somewhere, the last 10, 20, 30 years, they've been a notch below that. So for them, I think it's good for those type of teams that can't regularly stack and recruit at the elite level. They do get some mulligans, and they can get hot at the right time. And maybe the matchups work a certain way, because otherwise they probably would have been left out, and it would have been Georgia or whoever. And again, I was in the actual football. I was able to I was at the Sugar Bowl watching Notre Dame. They really impressed me. For the first time in a while, it felt like they had elite talent, right? Where they had the speed, they had the physicality, especially on defense, to match up against an SEC, a Southern power, in the way that they just haven't for the last 20 years. I think they had a win over Clemson in 2020. 2020 is a weird year, but they were able to do it maybe in flashes. But this looks like a legitimate Notre Dame team that is really, really good. They didn't, there was a little bit of flukiness to the Georgia win and how it went down, but it was not a fluke, if you follow me. Where they were comparable teams. Notre Dame played better and they won, and they deserve to win. Penn State has outperformed my expectations. I keep waiting for James Franklin, just based on what we've seen, for something to collapse. And maybe tonight at the Orange Bowl is that time where, again, it's teams that are on a level playing field, thereabouts, pretty comparable. Maybe that's the time where James Franklin's, the game management, clock management, going for it on fourth down, not going for it on fourth down, that type of stuff. Maybe this is the time where it's going to rear its ugly head, because it just feels like that's the way his career has gone. Or the other side is maybe he's figured it out. Maybe we made too much of some of those games earlier on. But I like Notre Dame. Again, I think they've got everybody's banged up at this point. I think Notre Dame's defense is a touch better. I'm concerned about Abdul Carter, the Penn State, probably top 10 pick. I'm concerned about him potentially being out or limited for the Nittany Lions. And I think Notre Dame's just got enough experience and enough talent on offense to get it done in a real kind of 16-13, 20-17 kind of defensive slugfest.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about the speed for Notre Dame, because I think the one thing that in the last couple of years, maybe the last decade or so, they've got some offensive linemen, right? They kind of had an idea of like, all right, we got to build in the trenches, but they didn't have like stud after stud after stud defensively, where I think when they went up against other teams that, all right, maybe it was a wash defensive line versus their usual stout offensive line, they would have some issues. But you're right. I mean, it's like a different team. It does look almost like a semblance of an SEC squad. Let's go to the game.
Georgia. Sorry,
yeah, Georgia. Yeah.
When I was watching that Notre Dame defense, I was like, this looks like the Georgia team that I have seen before. Now, again, I don't think they have the talent that that 2021 Georgia had on defense. It's not like that. Honestly, I don't think any team is going to have that much talent going forward, just because of the way the portal and NIL have kind of leveled things out. But just the type of defense that looked like a really, really good defense that I have seen at Georgia in the past, to at least some degree.
I want to ask, before we get into the game tomorrow night, I want to ask you, I'm glad you brought that up. So I was listening to a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying that part of the reason why you're not going to see kind of overall dominance maybe year after year for some of these teams like Georgia and Alabama, because for so many years, you had a 4-star guy, you had this big recruit, and if he went down, you had 3 guys behind him. Well, now, if that guy's not playing in year 1, he's going to go somewhere else. So the depth is kind of taken a little bit of a hit when it comes to these quote unquote blue blood programs. And that's why if these teams are going to struggle sustaining elite level performances because they don't have the depth of the past. Do you agree with that sentiment because of the portal, because of NIL, or is it just are they still going to have really good talent behind them? And maybe it's just an aberration this year?
I don't think it's an aberration, and I kind of touched on what we're talking about here in my latest story at The Athletic. Perfect plug, right? No, but seriously though, the depth is at a premium now because they are playing more games than ever. This is going to be game 16 for Texas and Penn State, which would tie the record according to the NCAA record books in FBS with like 1894 Yale, right? Like that's how far you have to go back. So depth matters more with a longer season, but depth is harder to amass. So here's a stat for you. If you look at the 247 talent composite, go back to 2019, there were 6 teams that had 50 plus blue chip players on their roster. Now there's 12. So what does that mean? To me, it means that the elite talents, instead of being concentrated, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, they're spread out a little bit more. So, the perfect example when I think of depth was the Georgia-Alabama national championship in Atlanta, right? Where Jalen Hurts isn't getting it done. Tua Tagovailoa comes off the bench, throws a 2nd and 26 touchdown pass to Devontae Smith. So think about what just happened. Alabama benched one quarterback who ends up being a really, really good player in the NFL for another quarterback who ends up being a first-round pick, and throws to this true freshman receiver who had like 8 career catches at that point and ends up winning the Heisman Trophy. That was Alabama's depth. I don't think you're going to have that anymore. You're just not. And I think it's good for the sport where you don't have the same guys every year, where it's not going to be another Georgia-Alabama national championship. We see some of these different teams. Again, it's still the blue bloods. It's just maybe the next tier, and the talent is dispersed a little bit more. So now we've got a Penn State, Notre Dame, and a Texas in there. Maybe next year Oregon figures it out and they're in that mix and that sort of thing. So yeah, you're not going to have the elite depth the way you used to, and the sport as a whole is better for it.
I was so lucky this year, and I'm sure you've been there. I went to Tuscaloosa for the game against USF, and Matt, it was just like I've covered World Series and WrestleManias and the Stanley Cup Finals, and just to be able to stand out there on the 4th quarter on the sideline, Brian Denny, and just look around and be a little speck amongst the 100,000 people. It was surreal. There's really nothing like college football, but I said it earlier before the season. I am concerned about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, maybe not just in year 1, but going if he doesn't have a national title contender in year 1, because I feel like with NIL, with the portal, he's not an Alabama guy. He could be a great coach. He's had some success, but I just want to hear from you based on what we know as far as next year and going forward. How do you think it's going to be for Kalen DeBoer here in the next couple of years at Alabama?
I think he's going to be just fine.
Okay.
Again, we have to readjust our expectations. Right. Is he going to win and be in the national championship game and picture every single year the way Nick Saban was? No, probably not.
But are people going to be okay with that, Matt? Right? Because you get, and we see this with other teams, like fan bases and boosters, right? They're the money guys. Like he's not going to get the leeway that obviously Nick Saban, and he's earned that. But I just wonder, like, if you turn into a team that's a really good SEC team, like if they're competitive every year and they're 12-7, we were just talking about rankings.
Yeah.
Instead of being 1-7, now they're 12-17. Like for other programs, yeah, but we're talking about the Crimson Tide. Like he may do a good job, but is a good job enough? Like whether that's a fair expectation or not, I think it's a realistic conversation to have.
No, that is a fair expectation. It is fair to expect Alabama to be really good every year.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not at the Nick Saban level. That is not going to happen probably to anyone ever. Okay. Right. But can you still be really good every year? Can you still be like Ohio State, like Georgia, somewhere in that mix? Yeah, absolutely. You look at the way he's recruited, recruiting class this past cycle, it was one of the best in the country. No, they did not have the season that I think a lot of people expected. They were a little bit down, but they were still right on the cusp of making the playoff, right? Mm-hmm. And I know what happened in the ReliaQuest Bowl. I take bowls as a whole. You kind of, maybe there's something from it, and maybe there's not. So I think it's going to be just fine because he's won literally every place he has been. Go back to when he was at Sioux Falls and the job he did at Washington and as an assistant along the way. I think he's going to be fine. I think there will have to be a growing, I guess, a learning curve for the Alabama fan base in terms of what is reasonable. And Greg Byrne, the athletic director there, I think he gets it. Yes, there will be pressure if they're not in the second round of the playoff next year. But I would not be surprised at all if they are in contention to win it all next year. Again, there's still so many unknowns. I don't have any idea what their roster is going to look like. Anything like that.
They probably don't.
Yeah, exactly. But I have enough confidence in him as an X's and O's coach, as a big picture guy, and what we've seen in recruiting right now, to think that Alabama can be really, really good next year, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it. I'm excited for tonight. My grandma, God rest her soul, rest in peace. She was a huge Notre Dame fan. So I'll be pulling for the Irish tonight. But tomorrow night, Texas and Ohio State. We talked about blue bloods. Like, man, this is Big Ten, I know they're in the SEC, but growing up, you're like, this is Big 10, Big 12 action right here. What do you expect from that game? It's exciting. It's exciting to figure. And I was talking to a buddy of mine that's a Michigan fan. He's like, yeah, great. We beat Ohio State. What now if they go win the national championship? Yeah, I guess we have that over them, but now they're the champs. So, oh man, it's going to be a hell of a game tomorrow night too.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I fear you're not, because Ohio State might just kick the crap out of Texas.
Really? You think? Really? Okay.
Based on what we've seen so far against Tennessee and against Oregon. Look, Ohio State entered the playoff to me as a major wild card. I did not have any idea what to expect after the Michigan loss. Could they have gotten their tails kicked against Tennessee in round one? Looked really shaky early. The Boo Birds come out. Could they have absolutely collapsed? Yes, I thought that was possible. The other side is actually what we've seen, where they just, hey, we are the most talented team in the country, or one of the most talented teams. We're going to blow the doors off everybody. Boom, here we go. And that's what we've seen. And at this point, if they play at their best, nobody's touching them, right? The quarterback, Will Howard's been good enough. They've got dudes all over on defense. One of the best running back tandems in the country. Elite receivers. Jeremiah Smith is, I don't want to speak too highly of him yet. He's a freshman, but he's really, really good.
He's the real deal.
Historically good potential. Certainly it's possible Ohio State just destroys Texas. Maybe Texas's defensive front can do enough. Maybe Quinn Ewers plays lights out in a way that we haven't necessarily seen yet. But yeah, I think Ohio State wins, and I think they probably win by double digits if I had to guess right now.
You think we see Arch Manning at all tomorrow night?
I think we see Arch in kind of like a change of pace, red zone package kind of thing a little bit, just because he's a better athlete than Quinn Ewers is in terms of his running ability, just his legs. He adds a different wrinkle, and it's different enough where you can make that 2 quarterback system work, even if it's only like 95-5 or 90-10, if you follow me. Look, the way Texas has handled the quarterback situation, they've done a really good job, because it is really hard to handle 2 quarterbacks of that caliber and to do it in a way that's working like this. It's one thing if you got Chris Leak and Tim Tebow, where Tebow maybe wasn't ready for the whole thing. He could still play a really big role. This isn't that at Texas, and it's Arch Manning, right? Where the casual fan knows that last name and says, "Oh, why is Arch not starting?" They've found a way at Texas to make it work at a really high level, and I don't think Sark has gotten enough credit for that, honestly, just because it's really, really impressive to see from afar.
Yeah, you got that right. All right, last one out of me before I let you go. I got to ask you about USF. Your thoughts on how the whole year ended? I mean, how the whole year went. Great to see him win a bowl game for the second straight year. Your thoughts on Alex Golish, Byron Brown, and what we could be seeing next year with the Bulls?
I thought it was fine. It was a fine year. It underachieved based on my expectations, but again, you mentioned Byron Brown. We have to take that into account, right? Where a starting quarterback gets hurt, you're not going to be as good. I think Byron's future is really, really interesting. Is he the guy that we've seen in flashes? Can he do that consistently? And if so, I think he can be one of the better players, mid-major group of 5 players in the country next year. I think that's totally 100% possible. But USF has to figure out the right way to use them and figure out how they want to make the quarterback thing work going forward. And there's a lot of, again, it's really, really complicated. Alex did a really good job in year 1, better than I thought. Year 2 was a disappointment. I think maybe not a step back, but just you didn't see the growth. So 2 things on that. One is important to remember that growth is not linear. You don't automatically go up and up and up every year. It would be great, but it doesn't happen. The other thing is something, I'm going to paraphrase something that Dan Mullen said in his first couple of years at Florida. It's a lot easier to go from 1 win, 2 wins to 6, 7 wins than it is to go from 7 to 9 or 9 to 10 or 10 to 11, right? So I think that's something we have to keep in mind here, where as you're trying to move up the ladder, it gets harder and harder to earn that extra win. So I think that's something we got to keep in mind, as I've seen USF fans upset about this, that, or the other. Look, if you would have told me in the first 2 years Golish would be in 2 bowls doing a fine job, that's good enough for right now. Now, year 3, there needs to be a big step forward. If we're going to view USF as kind of what they think they are, which is one of the better programs at the G5 level and one that's got a chance or maybe deserves the chance to move up down the line.
You are totally right, man. I think people lose that perspective, right? When how bad it was during those Jeff Scott years. Sure. It was rough. Shout out to our guy, Joey Knight, who's been through all of that stuff. At Matt Baker, CFB, check him out at The Athletic. Go get your subscription to The Athletic today. Matt, so proud of you, man. So happy for all your success. And again, if anybody could make it through just such a unique situation and be able to come out the other side doing great work and just representing himself in such a fantastic light, it's you, buddy. So my thoughts are with you and the family and everything during this transition. I'm so glad to talk to you. So glad to talk some college football with you. And I'll see you soon, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
You got it, pal. Matt Baker. Check him out at The Athletic. Matt Baker, CFB. Wow. That was great stuff from Matt. Listen, the biggest thing that kind of took me back was him saying that he thinks Ohio State could blow out Texas tomorrow. And I think it's more about what Ohio State is than Texas. But I don't know. Texas, I mean, remember them going into Michigan. And I know Michigan wasn't as good as they were last year, but still going to the big house like that and come up with a win. And I thought they won the battle of the trenches on both sides of the football. Very, very interesting. Again, follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube. You heard our guy TJ Rives talk about it. Shout out to our guy Ren Dax. Jay, what do you think of doing 5 minutes on local high school sports? I've got some things in the works for that. Something specifically where we're highlighting some of our local talent. As always, for our high school baseball coverage, we are going to lean on our good buddy Jared Guthrie and 813 Preps. Go check them out, 813preps.com. They crush the high school baseball coverage in the Tampa Bay area. He's tried to do other sports. It's just so hard, man. It's so hard to be able to do that. And each sport has its own little community, right? And I know because I've been in that high school baseball community, but I've also have friends that are in the high school football community. And it's, as much as there could be some overlap, it's 2 different worlds. It really is. The players are completely different. that's just kind of the world we live in nowadays, where a lot of these kids are only playing one sport because they're playing them all year round, especially down here in Florida, where you don't have kind of the change in seasons. So you don't necessarily see, like you see up north, where the starting quarterback's also the shortstop and the point guard. Like, that's just the way it goes, right? I played multiple sports growing up. My senior year, I played 3. So, I was the captain of 3 teams, but I was also a fireman, and I was, doing a little bit of everything. So, it's the advantage and the disadvantage, right, of being able to play your favorite sport all year round. I want to talk about something real quick that I don't know if I've mentioned on the program, but it comes to light now after what we've just heard from James Franklin when he was on the stage with Marcus Freeman yesterday, talking about the need for everybody to be in a conference. I don't quite understand why everybody has such a, I don't get it. I clearly don't get it. What's the big deal about Notre Dame not being in a conference? Like, everybody wants to get their panties in a bunch because of something like this. We love tradition in sports. We love when we can say that teams and programs have been doing things for 100 years. Notre Dame feels like that they don't want to be in a conference. And listen, the ACC, for a lot of the other sports, like, they play that schedule. They have an agreement in football with the ACC. Who cares? Who cares if Notre Dame isn't in the conference? I like that they can play USC and then play Navy, and then they can play Ohio State. They could play Michigan, and then they could play Stanford. Like, I like that. I like the uniquity of it. I like the variance of it. I like that it's not set in stone that they're just playing their conference every single year. I don't see what the big deal is about that. We get so pissed off in sports when people disrespect the history. And then you have things like this with Notre Dame not being in a conference. I think of, like, the Yankees. They don't have facial hair. Like, people get bent out of shape because that's a rule that they've had forever. I think it's unique. I think it's cool. I have no issue with teams, with programs doing things a little different. We celebrate diversity. We celebrate change. We celebrate things that, like, make people different than others. But then we have situations like this where everybody wants to, start shaking their fist at a cloud. Like, I can't believe Notre Dame isn't in the conference. This is such a big deal. Is it? That's what's wrong with college football, is that Notre Dame's not in the conference? Get real, James Franklin. How about the NIL? How about the transfer portal? There's a lot more things out there that are what's wrong with college football than Notre Dame not being in a conference. Again, I like that they're unique. I like that they're different than everybody else. I think we should celebrate things like that in sports. I like that they could play USC one week and then play Ohio State the next, or play Michigan, or go play Texas. Like, I like that. I think it's great that we have conferences. I like these, regional rivalries that we get, and we see Alabama play Auburn, right? I like that. That's great. But not everybody's Notre Dame, and that's okay. Doesn't mean they're better than everybody else, but it's unique. It's unique, and I think that's what makes sports great, when we can find these different stories, we can find these different players, we can find these different teams that are just cut from a different cloth. They've been doing things for 40, 50, 60, 100 years. I don't know. I may be in the minority for that, but I don't know. That's just me. That's me. And you know what? And like here, Ren says, because they get to set their schedule with, to be honest, is almost never top 10 in terms of toughness. That's why FSU missed it last season. Yeah, okay, I get it. But they scheduled Texas A&M in the first game this year, and, they beat them. It's funny that you say that, Ren, and you're not the only person that says that, because when all I heard of earlier this year was, oh, Notre Dame doesn't play anybody, and look at their schedule, and blah, 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 blah. All right, that's fine. Well, they beat number 20 Texas A&M. They beat number 15 Louisville. They beat number 24 Navy. They beat number 19 Army. They beat those 4 teams, so 4 ranked teams in the top 25. And then, they beat number 10 Indiana and number 2 Georgia. All right. And then in other years, when you look at Florida State, like, okay, the majority of the time you're playing Florida State over the last couple of decades, they're probably ranked. USC is on that schedule. Majority of the time over the last couple of decades, they're ranked. So it's not like they're scheduling these crumb bums, bottom feeders in these big conferences. These are all big name programs. Texas A&M, Florida State, USC. I don't know. I think there's a lot more things to get mad about when it comes to college football and why people don't like it than bitching and moaning about what's going on with Notre Dame. It's just it's a weird hill to die on. I'm not dying on it. I like the difference. I like the change. I like new things. Follow me on all social media platforms at Recher once again, and then like it, subscribe. Already tomorrow on the program, we have Rob Higgins joining us from the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. He's going to join us at 12:15 tomorrow to talk about the Stadium Series. If we have a big event, big time sporting event in the Tampa Bay area, it has to do with Rob Higgins and the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, whether it's our Super Bowls or national championships, or if it's WrestleManias. Like, it's Rob Higgins and the crew. It's those guys. They do such a great job of putting our community in a spotlight that it's really incomparable to any other city in the country. Like, just look around. Who else is hosting the amount of events that we are here in the Tampa Bay area? You got to love it. All right, let's keep our conversations going. Our final guest of the show. Look at him. The one and only Eddie on the ice, Eddie in the yard. Eduardo Encina joining the program today. Is that Baby Yoda in the background too? Money in the Bank?
Yeah, he's on top of the senior Money in the Bank briefcase there.
Oh, you got this. Oh, that's right. You got the senior, the Damian Priest specialty. I like that. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you doing, Jay?
Good, man. Love the hair. You're looking very oozy right now. Feeling good. Amalie Arena today, morning skate was the big takeaway there from the Bolts today.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, everyone was pretty excited about the outdoor game after it being announced yesterday. It's funny. There's actually only 7 guys on this roster that played in that game in Nashville a couple years ago. So not everyone's been a part of it. I actually talked to Luke Glendening today, who has actually been a part of, I believe, 8 outdoor games. Everyone talks about how this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but Luke Glendening played in 3 outdoor games when he was in Michigan, played in one outdoor game when he was in the AHL in Grand Rapids, and played in 3 in Detroit.
Right?
So he, once in a lifetime experience for him for 8 times. But it was fun talking to him about it. These guys are super excited. I think a lot of them already knew going into yesterday because this thing didn't come together quickly. The reporting of it, I can tell you, didn't come together quickly. It's something that I've been working on for several months now to try to leading up to yesterday. So it's official, said and done. Now we can all look forward to February 1st.
Were you on the beat in Nashville?
Yeah, I was there. Cold night. It was really cool.
That's right. We met up. Didn't we meet up? Because
I don't know. I mean, everyone went out on Broadway afterwards. I think I didn't. I was out with someone. I don't know.
I don't remember what was going on.
Yeah,
It must have been a good time. We can't remember.
I'm trying to think, but I definitely know I went out because I was like, you gotta take advantage of it, right? I mean, I follow a little bit later than most people, but Nashville doesn't close down at 11:30 or 12.
Oh,
so.
I remember what I did. I actually had one of my buddy's bachelor parties from back home in New York that was there, and they didn't even know that we were there. And I was like, I'm going to go to the bachelor party then. I wasn't even invited.
That's right. You just kind of disappeared.
That's right. I had to go somewhere. And that's why I don't remember the rest of the night. What I do remember is that the Uber was like 1.5 miles, and it was like $58. Thanks, Nashville.
Surge pricing.
How are they going to get this done? Like, what if it's 78 degrees?
Yeah. So from talking to the people in the league about this, and it still kind of sounds insane a little bit, right? But they've done a lot of homework. This is something that's been years, and like I'm sure Rob Higgins will tell you tomorrow, like years in the making, and even going back to 2018, when, like you said, the Tampa Bay Sports Commission does an incredible job of putting on these events here, whether it's hockey, whether it's Super Bowl, WrestleMania, whatever. And they put this thing in the ear of the league then, just kind of saying, hey, they actually put a billboard on the way to the airport that the NHL could see on 275, and was like, thanks for the All-Star game. Next time, let's think outside the box. And it had a picture of Raymond James with an ice rink in it. So that put the kind of idea in the league. And since then, this thing's been going, like, I honestly think that if COVID didn't happen, we might be doing this a couple years, before now. But I think COVID kind of slowed it down. But the league, the ice people, the operations people, all those people have had made multiple visits to Raymond James to test out everything from, certain temperatures, humidity, sunshine, heat, how that's going to affect even to the salinity of the air, because Raymond James is so close to the water there. And basically their focus was how do we control the elements for as long as we can. And obviously come game time, you can't. But up until then, I mean, they're going to build a structure, which is basically a warehouse canopy tented kind of thing. I've talked to a lot of people. I've asked them, I was like, what kind of thing can I visualize this being? And what I'm getting a lot of, and I think fans know this, can relate to this, and it's not going to be like this, but this is a comp, but basically something that looks a little bit like the Bucs indoor practice facility there, so like a warehouse with like a canopy kind of roof, stuff like that. And when they tear this thing down, who knows? That's probably the $100 million question, is like, when is it safe to tear this thing down? And what happens if it does rain or something like that in the middle, like 5 minutes in? But, so they're going to do that and obviously build the rink under, inside this climate controlled building or structure, and keep it there. That's not going to require any more, any extra time to build the rink. It usually is a 2-week process before the game that they go in there and install it. And, obviously the technology over the years has improved that makes that a little bit easier. But, and the league acknowledges that there's still a whole lot of risk to this thing. But I think they are embracing that. And, to be honest, like, the Winter Classic and the Stadium Series events have kind of, like, we're super excited about it. But I think there's a lot of people in like traditional hockey circles that have kind of think that this has kind of become a little tired. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's coming to Florida right now, is because you can kind of showcase, these non-traditional markets right in the peak of, both of them being really, really good. I think that as much as this is about Tampa, the timing of it right now is also about the Panthers and them coming off a Stanley Cup win, and how the fact that, the past 5 Stanley Cup finals have included a Florida team in it, and the growth of hockey, over the past 3 decades since the NHL came down here. So, but yeah, but still they know that this is going to be a challenge. And from talking to some people, they're like, this is like, we want this to be something that people maybe question us whether we're going to be able to do it, but that they're going to be talking about for years to come. And I think it kind of has this like almost reality TV feel to it, that we really won't know until we actually see this thing work out, whether it's going to work out. But I think part of that is adding to the curiosity and the excitement of this, is that, I think they've done all their research. I think they have contingency plans, even with scheduling stuff, Bucs playoffs, stuff like that. But, they've done their research. So all the discussions have happened that need to happen, but still, they're still going to have to pull this off.
The intrigue is there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think the most important question is, are they going to let the media skate on the ice the day before the game like we've seen in other places?
Did we skate? We didn't get to skate in
we didn't. But that was also around COVID, right?
It was 2022, so it was probably like it was the year after.
No, I guess it wasn't COVID,
after COVID.
But like,
remember we snuck onto, like, we were right there.
Yeah, you
like,
got kicked out. I was the one that didn't get kicked out.
That's right.
See, if you guys don't know, like, we weren't supposed to go by the ice, and I think it might have been you or somebody took a picture of me right next to the rink, and I was wearing a black jacket, so I kind of looked like an NHL official. And then everybody else was getting kicked out, and I was just like, "Oh yeah."
And then we just kind of strolled down, and then we all had our passes on, and I don't think you did.
I had it under my jacket, so that's why they didn't see it.
See, that's everyone saw us. Like, you guys got to go.
I want to see it. There's got to be a text message. There's got to be a text message somewhere of me saying, "Get down here, guys! Come on!"
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a lot of fun, and I'm glad, Ed. I'm glad this is a really good thing to be able to get our community highlighted, and the Lightning playing outside. You're right. The intrigue is a huge part of that entire thing. We'll see how well the team's going to be playing out. That's next year. But tonight, after the win Tuesday night against the Carolina Hurricanes, I've been saying this to everybody that will listen. Carolina's a mirror. They show you how well you're playing, how bad you're playing. You better play honest, because they will beat you. I thought the Lightning played a pretty defensive game. I still don't think they're scoring up to the capacity that we've seen the last couple of months. But what's your assessment of their play as of late, and especially how they were able to turn around that losing streak?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it was a good opponent to play to get out of that funk that they were in, right? Like you said, Carolina, you're going to not get much space on the ice. It's going to be a tight checking game. It's going to be physical. They are an opponent that kind of brings you into the fight and makes you play almost a simpler game, which I think is what these guys really needed to focus on coming off that road trip. I mean, when I look at that trip, I really kind of look at the fact that they weren't really getting to the middle of the ice. Their opposing defenses were kind of shutting that area around. And because of that, the first line, which they really, depended on a lot, wasn't really getting those chances. And then you combine, I do think they've leaned a lot on the power play again, and, that wasn't getting much there. So, but, I think talking to Cooper today, he was saying that the one thing that he really liked about that game, especially in the sense of how they won it, was, one, that they bent but didn't break. I mean, you could look at that game and probably the last 12 minutes of it, they were really hemmed in. I think that top line had one shift that they couldn't get the puck out, and it was like almost a 2-minute shift that they were hemmed in. And like I said, they allowed chances, but they didn't break. So that's good defensively. You always want to see, teams survive that. And then, when you pull out 2 points out of that in a tied game, that's great. But also, obviously, the big play of that game was the way Braden Point scores that goal. And everyone's going to remember the goal and how amazing it was for the move that he made, the way that he was able to get on his stick and put it in the back of the net. But I think Cooper would say that the best part of that play was it was a play where they tried not to do too much. They get the puck deep, Jake Gensel on the far side rims it around, Kucherov comes across and pulls it off the wall and just finds Point and with some space there. So, I think, this team, obviously we've seen it so many times. There's times when they can try to do too much, and they have so much skill, and they are so dynamic with the puck that, sometimes they forget how to get points sometimes, and I think that's what they did out west. And I think Carolina was the perfect opponent for them. And now going into today with Boston, this is a huge stretch for them because they haven't played that many division teams. I think 6 games against division opponents, and we're sitting here at game 41, 42. Yeah. And, so they've got to start, piling up points against those teams. And they'll play Boston tonight. They'll play them on Tuesday in Boston. So you've got two matchups with them in a tight amount of span. And in those games against the Atlantic Division teams, they haven't played well. I think they're 1-5-0 against the Atlantic Division teams. You don't like your chances when you're playing that poorly against your division, especially with all these division teams, coming up on the schedule. So this is a big one for them. Again, they'll have 2 shots at Boston. Boston's, I think, 5 games, 5 more games played on them. So they can, you win these games, you can easily, jump them in the standings. And that's the other thing is they are, I think as of a couple of days ago, they played the fewest games in the Eastern Conference. So
yeah,
you're good.
38. Yep.
Yeah. You're going to catch up, and, you're going to have to, it's one thing to have those games in hand, but it's another thing to get the points when you need them. And this is the time when they need them.
Yeah, people talk about, it's great to have games in hand. No, it's great to win the games that you have.
Exactly.
That's the difference. I love to see that their goal differential is, oh, wait, no, I'm just kidding. That's a joke because everybody used to tell me how important run differential was for the Rays and goal differential.
Right.
They're in 4th place right now, and they have a plus 33. So I guess that means they're better than the Panthers.
And Boston has like a minus 24 or something.
They're minus 24, and Boston's on a 5-game losing streak. So I had my buddy Nick Cattles on yesterday from Boston, and he was just like, there is a sense of apathy right now for the Bruins. But for them, like they're looking at the Lightning, Marchand and Pasternak, they've had success at Amalie Arena. I think they have to have that same kind of mental fortitude that they had against Carolina and play an honest game, or else they're going to wind up on the wrong side because you have McAvoy, you have Swayman, you still have a lot of good players on that team.
For sure.
That's not something that that's not a team I would certainly take lightly. I want to ask you, because I've been asking everybody else about Connor Geekie. I know he's a rookie, right? But he's playing with the big club, and the way that he was able to get up with the big club is that he played with a little bit of a snarl, and I wouldn't say he looks out of place, but I don't see that same guy. And I want to go over to him and to be like, bro, you got this. Just go out there and hit anything that's moving and go dangle and stick handle. Like, the kid's got talent. I think he's doing a good job off of the puck, and I know in essence that might be harder, but I just want to see more from the kid because I think he's the key. He unlocks everything. I think he sets everybody in their lines. What have you seen from Connor Geekie, and do you think that we're going to see, like, how much growth could we see from him possibly in year one?
Yeah, I mean, so we got to think one thing. This guy was playing junior hockey this time last year, right?
Yeah,
so,
I'm being way harder on him than everybody else.
Right? No, but it is real because like he's 20 years old, and I think he got the benefit of not necessarily thinking many people thought he would make this team, this roster off the bat. You know, I mean, like I honestly did think he would because I think they kind of needed him a little bit too.
Yes.
And it's shown with how his elevation within the lines has gradually happened. I mean, like, I love that line. I do think that, playing with Cirelli and Hagel probably brings in the best of his two-way game. And again, this is a guy who, at 20 years old was saying, I want to be a guy who's like a Sasha Barkov, not a, Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid. So, he holds that responsible two-way play close to him, which makes that so good on that line. That being said, I do think he defers to those guys too. And I think he's always going to be that no matter where he plays to a certain extent, but probably a little bit more so on that second line with Hagel and Cirelli. But I think also the other thing too that he's dealing with right now is, you're reaching this point in the season where physically you've got to grind. Those schedules that he was playing in juniors, are not the same, so you're trying to get that physical, like, especially a guy who wants to play as physically as he can, and, who wants to be a guy who can play, 18, 20 minutes a game. I think that's where the inherent growth has to be next step for him. It's just kind of, how do you handle, the back-to-backs? How do you handle all these games on the road in January? How do you handle, days when you wake up and even though you're 20 years old, you got to kind of just figure it out how to grind out 20 minutes and help your team win, So, but I don't have concerns at all about him. Like, he's a pretty savvy kid. He's all super talented. I think we're gonna be talking about him in a Lightning uniform for years and years and years to come. And he's got kind of a little bit of swagger, and a lot of personality to his game, which is why I like him with Hagel too, because both of those guys are, these guys play Call of Duty on Xbox, and they talk a lot of trash to each other in the lobby all the time. And he takes it and he gives it out. So they're all super competitive.
Do you play with them?
No, I know. I don't. I just heard about their chirps about how they it's him, Hagel, Cirelli, and Paul. They all play together. So
what do you play? You have a gamer chair there.
No, well, it's a gamer chair. It's more of a Marvel chair. It's a
Marvel chair.
I'm more of a comic book guy than a gamer guy.
Did you see these bad boys for tonight?
Now, what are those? Are those purple or blue? Or
no, these are blue, buddy. These are blue. Yeah, I would understand the periwinkle, but these are blue. These are like Memphis Tiger blue.
Okay.
Can't
wait.
Yeah, I know you can't wait, buddy.
Can't wait to see what Phil says.
Did you know that you were in the Recher's Rapid Reaction the other night?
Like cameo?
Yeah, you cameo, because what did I tell you right after Brayden Point scoring the goal? I said, that's a bad mother. Watch your mouth. Like, it's just, again, going back to that goal.
Yeah.
And again, I said on the reaction video, like, that was probably the worst game I've ever seen Nikita Kucherov play. Like, he couldn't have turned the puck. That's why you can't always trust the stats. It was like one giveaway for Kuch. I'm like, he had 3 in the second period alone. There's no way he only had 1. But that's the great. I mean, it's crazy. You have these elite level athletes, and you know this covering the Lightning. Like, Kuch could make 2 plays that you're just like, oh my God. And then you look at the end of the night and he had 4 points. You're like, how the hell does that happen? Like, usually guys make mistakes and it's like, it screws them up. Kuch had a terrible game the other night, but he has the wherewithal to use. Like, think about it. He's taking the puck on his offside because he's a right winger. People don't give him nearly enough credit with that. With McDavid as a center, McKinnon's a center. He's not a left winger as a left-handed shot. He's a left-handed shot on the right side. So every single time he's getting the puck on the rim around the board, he's taking it on the backhand, getting it to his front hand, or just backhand passing it to people. It's a marvel to watch him do his thing. And when you have Brayden Point and Jake Gensel on the line, like, even if the Lightning don't play all that well, they always have a chance to win if it's a tight game like that because of those guys.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it wasn't the goal itself was like jaw dropping, but the play itself wasn't one that like, the foundation of it and how it was created. Like you said, again, like you said, Kucherov, there's no better guy I've seen that takes the puck off the wall, especially off that side. He's just amazing how he sees it. And obviously him and Point have such a spider sense about them that basically they know exactly where they're going to be at all times, that they're amazing. And like I said, like sometimes the main problem with the Lightning is that all that gets in their own way sometimes because they try to do too much with it. But I think that, again, that was a big win. Carolina's no joke, as we know. And now they just got to kind of, build off of that and, start really kind of piling some points.
I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Raw on Netflix, the debut episode Monday night. It's interesting to hear, even just a couple of days later, what people thought of the entire thing. What was your assessment of the show? Was it, I thought it was more of like a Raw 25th anniversary type of thing rather than like a WrestleMania, because I thought there was good matches, but wasn't big surprises, wasn't big returns, wasn't, I think, a lot of like jaw-dropping moments. I just thought it was like a solid B+ show. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. Like I probably expect a little bit more considering all the hype that went into it, but there's a little bit more ceremonial stuff than necessarily I'd want to watch. I think I told you before, like watching The Rock come out in like his like lack of kayfabe, and telling Cody Rhodes that say hi to Mama Rhodes for me. It's like, this guy just busted you open like 3 months ago, and like you're like, oh, like you carried the company for the past year and everything like that. So,
I thought he was going to say Roman when he was like, this guy's been carrying the company. I was like, he's going to talk about Roman. And he's like, Cody Rhodes. And I was like, bro, you literally just put his own blood on the belt that you have his mom's name on. That's part of the storyline. Now all of a sudden it's like, here's a peek behind the curtain. And then you try to like go back and be like, so Mama Rhodes, I said hello. And I was like, no, Rock, this isn't you and Lillian Garcia from the 90s when you were talking about strudel. It's
exactly.
Different. So it was different.
That was a little different because like I mean, the great thing that they've been so good at recently, I think you would probably agree with this, is the storytelling, right? And that they've really reinvented what's quote unquote sports entertainment is with the storytelling. And then for you to go like total like, and that's why we watch it too, right? I mean, like, it's not technical anymore. It's about the story. So, and for them to go for them to start it with him, after Triple H, just kind of like, being the LA Dwayne Johnson versus being the Rock, that
they were also shills for Netflix too, right? Like I get it, but like them totally shilling out for Netflix and talking about all this stuff, like I get it. Like I think there's a line, right? Nobody wants their intelligence insulted, right? Like, so that's why, like, when you're trying to not call it pro wrestling and they're using that vernacular again because they don't want to insult their intelligence. Fine. Right. But I also think, Ed, that there's also another end of the spectrum of like, don't insult our intelligence by stealing the imagination of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I don't want every peek behind the curtain, right? Like I get it. Like I get it. You don't have to tell me how. I don't want to know how every single sauce is made, right? Like we're suspending our disbelief because we understand that. And if you're sitting there like every single time hitting us over the head with that kind of stuff, I think that in essence insults our intelligence than the other side.
I do think too, one thing that I noticed, and Shannon was watching with me, my wife, and we were noticing this too, is like, I think they got so caught up in doing so many camera angles that they missed a lot. And there was a lot of like, stuff that didn't land, and you could see it pretty visually on camera, where, shots that, are supposed to be, and didn't really land well, so I think they, and like you said, this is all, it's the first time of them doing it like this and everything like that. I'm excited about it. It's going to be cool. I mean, gladly nothing buffered. So I think we're all happy about that. But like I said, I know you've got to pay the sponsors, and it's a bit, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about the money. Right. But, so like I said, I give it probably a B- ish maybe.
Yeah.
So.
It's funny because I actually lost my internet connection like 10 minutes at the end. I thought it was buffering, and I was like, "Damn it! I made it this far for no reason." But it was just me.
That Cody Paul Tyson fight, man. I was like, I barely got to watch it. Like the scrolling wheel was going at it the whole time. It won in 10 rounds. So
yeah, at least we got to see Tyson's ass cheeks, because that's why everybody wanted to tune into that freaking fight. Who's Shannon's favorite wrestler?
Who's Shannon's favorite wrestler?
She Roman fan?
Wow, that's a good question. See, I think it's just grown on her in general because I've been, so into it. But
yeah, Steph can't watch it. She tried. She'll watch any other game, the wrestling thing. She's like, nah, I'm out of here. See ya. Who's your favorite guy right now? Who's the one person? Like, if I tell you you're gonna miss Monday Night Raw tonight, but you're only gonna see one segment, what one person is on there?
Oh, geez, wow,
that's a good question.
That's a really good question. You know what? This is no one's gonna say this, but what they've done with Drew, has been great.
Yeah,
and there's been times when I thought it's gotten a little old and stuff like that, but like, the whole narrative of like him coming after the guys he's wronged them and stuff like that, like, the thing is, you never know when he's going to show up, right? I mean, it's like KO, right?
Yeah. Let me get into that, because I like that. I brought this up with our guy David Shealy a couple weeks ago. I'm bringing it up again now. They need to put Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, and Seth Rollins together in a group.
That would
do it now.
Incredible.
Go up. Listen, I don't think any of those guys, because Seth is not going to wrestle CM Punk at WrestleMania now that they just did on Netflix. You just did that. You're not going to do it again. What are those three guys going to do in WrestleMania? I don't know, but they've also wrestled a bunch of big time, high profile matches. If they go on an absolute tear over the next couple of months and wrestle a big 3-on-3 match that is just a freaking shit show, and it's almost like how Legacy and Evolution and The Rock and Mankind, that type of thing, I think that's what they should do. I know some people online are like, oh, make them the new NWO. They don't need to be the NWO, but I think they need some consistency where you get them a shirt, you give them a really good name that you can make an anagram out of it, 3-letter type of, it doesn't even have 3-letter, but something, right? It could be BA, the badasses, or the AK, ass kickers, something like that. But all three of those guys together as full-blown heels, full-blown, I can't believe that we fought against CM Punk and Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, and these guys either left you or they've ruined everybody's life. What the hell is wrong with all of you people?
Right.
I think those three guys together could be an absolute force. Just let them kick everybody's ass.
Jay, they always have writer openings at WWE. I
know. I think that's where I'm missing my calling. Maybe I should just go work for the WWE. What are you going to do with your career now that you're not at iHeart anymore? I'm going to go to WWE. Yeah, why not? Why the hell not, right? Never know. How we do it. All right.
Then you get me free tickets everywhere.
That's the end of the show right there. Eddie in the yard. Of course, man. I'll get you free tickets. It's so funny. Like, we were talking about the Royal Rumble, because I was there standing. What did you do for the Royal Rumble?
I was behind the dugout. So I was behind the home dugout.
You went as a fan. You went as a fan?
Yeah,
I went as a media member, and they were like, you can either go up in the baseball press box or you can stand by the hard cameras. So for 4 hours, I just stood there, and I just stood there like this. And I was like, oh, that's great. And I saw all the people walking by. Like, it was pretty cool. But I also stood in one place for 4 hours. But yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up, see what are those job openings on Indeed?
I don't know. I actually saw one recently. I'm not looking for a job, but just
send them over to me. They're like, sir, can you write? I can write my name in script. I know cursive. Maybe that's what's going to work out for me. Eddie Encina, Eduardo and Encina, Eddie in the yard, Eddie on the ice. Appreciate you, my brother. I'll see you tonight at Emily.
All right, Jay. See you later on.
All right, pal. The one and only Ed Encina. He's in my group. He's in my faction. We have to come up with a faction name. Who would be in our faction? It's got to be wrestling fans. Ed, David Shealy, some other guys too. Some other guys that are cool enough to be able to be in there. But yeah, great show today, man. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. It's really, really good stuff. Check out all of the different things that I have up on my socials at Recher. Yeah, don't forget the Beckles and Recher podcast starts next Wednesday. Beckles and Recher podcast starts next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Follow us on all of our social media platforms because we're definitely going to post that everywhere and anywhere. I'm excited for the Lightning game tonight. I wasn't at morning skate, obviously, because I was here with you guys. But yeah, I hope they can continue to win these games because they have so many of them in hand. 38 games played. Only one other team has 38 games played. I want to say it's LA. I was looking at it before. Let me pull it up real quick. I think it's LA. Yes, 38 games played for the Kings, too. So you win these games. I mean, Boston's lost 5 in a row. The Lightning have 44 points. That's only one behind Boston for third place in the Atlantic. The key this year, and I wonder what it is, because we've seen the last couple of years when it comes to who the Lightning will play in the first round. We saw it 2 years ago when it was a foregone conclusion because of how good, I think it was Boston that year. The Lightning were just going to play the Leafs. We knew that was going to happen. This year, you probably want to avoid that 2-3 matchup. You don't want to play Toronto. You don't want to play Florida. So winning and getting that first seed overall and playing one of the wild cards, I think is going to be huge. Because you think about it like this. Do you want to play a team like Florida or Toronto in the first round? Or would you rather play a team like Columbus or Pittsburgh, right? Like matchups this year in hockey when it comes to the playoffs, I think that is going to be one of the keys, probably more this year than the last couple of years. All right, a big thank you to everybody that came on the show today. Coach Ben Fletcher from USF, unbelievable. Go back and listen to that interview. It'll definitely make your day. Also, TJ Rives, Buccaneers sideline reporter. He's all over it. Love the energy, love the passion. Check out everything he's got going on. Matt Baker from The Athletic, talking all things college football. And then, of course, Encina, my guy, Eddie in the Yard. Back in action tomorrow, 12:15. We'll have Rob Higgins joining us from the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. We also have some other irons in the fire. You know that I'm going to be bringing the heat when it comes to our guests here on the podcast. Follow me again, finally, at JRecher. You see it there in the upper corner here, and like and subscribe everything here on YouTube. That's going to wrap it up for me. Hope everybody has a wonderful Thursday. Go Bolts, and we'll see you next time right here on the JRecher podcast. I am gone.